Hey there, it's Rachel Mullins, the host of Hashtag No Filter Fridays on Public House Media.
This is Liz Colburn, host of The Morning Uplift here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come back and check out my show, The Morning Uplift, where we talk about finding your beauty in the journey. A new show comes out twice a month on the first and third Mondays. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Morning Uplift. Thank you again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello and welcome to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. My name is Brice Burge.
And I'm Ivan Sanchez Carrasco. Today we're going to talk with Luis Burranca about the upcoming U.S.-Peru friendly. We're also going to talk about the new Costa Rica hire, the Save the Crew, and we're also going to talk about the CONCACAF Women's Championship game.
Your Soccer Passport is sponsored by Squadcast. As podcasters that deal with analysts and guests from around the world, being able to record remotely is key. Current industry standards rely heavily on internet connection, but Squadcast changes all that with a simple browser-based tool. It requires no additional software to install. The audio is recorded locally as high-quality WAV files, then uploaded to the host computer. It gives some really good audio quality. To get started with your remote podcasting recording experience, go to squadcast.fm for your 14-day free trial. Let's start domestically with this episode of Your Soccer Passport, namely with the big news coming from MLS on Friday that Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Cleveland Browns, has announced that he will be supporting the Save the Crew efforts, and that should be enough to keep the Columbus Crew in Ohio and not relocating it to Austin. This is according to a press release from MLS Soccer on their website, a very no-nonsense press release, very much just MLS on Columbus, MLS on Austin, MLS from the Save the Crew Foundation, president of the Columbus Partnership, and they embedded a tweet from the Cleveland Browns. So very no-nonsense, just straightforward stuff with dealing about this effort to save the crew, coming now from an extra push from the Cleveland Browns ownership. We've talked about this at length, more specifically last episode, that the crew needed to stay in Columbus specifically because of what it meant to MLS. And now that it looks like it's going to stay. How do you feel about this, Yvonne?
I mean, I think it's awesome news, especially because last week we were talking about it, and it didn't seem, even from last week when we were recording, that they were going to be saved, and we were kind of talking about them with the idea that they were already going to Austin. But no, the owner of the Cleveland Browns comes in and saves the day, and keeps one of the original franchises in Columbus, and which looks like it's going to be enough for all of it to work out, which is huge for Columbus and all the effort that all the fans did to try to keep them there. This grassroots movement for them, I think, is spectacular.
From Ohio, all the things that have come into this, I think it's completely ridiculous when you think about all of the layering of coincidences and precedences created by the different sports movements. In Columbus and Ohio as a whole, the state has something called the Modell Law, which is specifically named after Art Modell, who was the former owner of the Cleveland Browns and relocated the team from Cleveland to Baltimore. The Cleveland Browns now is not the same team that had Jim Brown back in the 80s. This is a team that is brand new starting in the 1999 season. Their first draft pick, Tim Couch, one playoff appearance in all that time, and most notably being so bad that they actually had a Bud Light deal that talked about coolers being magically unlocked as soon as the Cleveland Browns won a game, which they did earlier this year. that is just so crazy, because now, as we've talked about markets and we talk about relocations, the Cleveland Browns moving to Baltimore, Baltimore looking like it wasn't going to be a feasible market for both football in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, with how close those two cities and metropolitan areas are together. They're often combined into one anyway. The CFL, they have their Canadian expansion. Baltimore now looks like a really good place to put a team. They sold out all their games. Baltimore won the Grey Cup, the only non-Canadian team to win the Canadian Super Bowl, essentially. And they relocated up to Montreal and are now the Montreal Alouettes, which is funny because they are currently quarterbacked by former Cleveland Brown draft pick Johnny Manziel. All that comes up. And it's, like you have all these little things stirring around. On the other side of it, you also have the Haslams, who bought this team from Randy Lesnar, who inherited the team from his father after his father passed away, and then sold the team so he could buy Aston Villa out of the EPL. All these small little things coming up. So now you've got all these little things in place. You got a potential lawsuit from the Ohio Attorney General in the city of Columbus, whether or not the MLS violated this Model law about having proper notification of moving a franchise out of Ohio into Austin, Texas, and just all these little things that continue to add up about this team. And it finally came through with the Haslams brought involved. Previously, it was Pete Edwards Jr., a sports orthopedics physician that kind of led the investor group to save the Crew and keep them in Columbus. But now with the Haslams involved, it gives this extra push for keeping the team in Columbus, which I think is absolutely necessary for the MLS. They have to keep their traditional franchise around. And now there's some questions about what can the Crew do now that this is in play? What does it mean to have so much overlapping in Ohioan sports? What does it mean for Austin? There's so many different routes and unknowns that we can talk about now. So Yvonne, for you specifically, what is a big thing about this announcement that you want to focus on and discuss, because there's so many different options?
Yeah, I think the big part is the fact that they're essentially being saved by the Cleveland Brown NFL owner, and it's not a coincidence that the Browns moved at one point, and that's probably a key reason why he was invested in making sure to keep this team around. Then you have, and you were talking about how bad the Browns have been for a while. Right now, I think they're like 2-3-1, which is like their best start in probably 20 years, something ridiculous like that. And you have LeBron James, who just left Cleveland to go to Los Angeles. So right now, the Cleveland Brown owner is the toast of the state with everything he's doing right now, and the fact that the Browns aren't atrocious, and now that the Crew looks like they're going to be saved. I think it's great for them. It sucks for Austin, because now they kind of had this momentum building for the team, even though it wasn't the best PR, but it's still PR and it's still something. And now, considering they're just going to have to start from scratch, Austin, they kind of like lost some momentum in that regard, and now they're just not as interesting. A little lukewarm water to me, lukewarmish, especially when you consider all these different MLS franchises, especially the new ones, everything they've done. When you look at Atlanta, when you look at LAFC, and you look at Cincinnati, who's going to be in the league next year, and the run they had last year in the U.S. Open Cup, they have these different stories and different ways to build up, and now Austin doesn't seem to have that, which kind of sucks for them, because either you're one of the original MLS teams, so you have that, you're, like a Timbers or Sounders kind of, you have this niche in the Northwest, which is really unique in its own regard, or you're one of these brand new franchises like LAFC or Atlanta, who are just doing things right from the start, kind of not blowing the MLS out of the water, but doing something to be memorable in their own right. And now kind of Austin isn't it any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Austin is still going to be guaranteed a team. In the very same press release, the MLS said that Precourt Sports Ventures, the one that was trying to relocate the Crew, has still done everything right per se in terms of getting a team and making sure that FC Austin does exist. They expect that 2021 to be the latest that Austin FC will come around. But again, they got nothing. They don't have a natural rivalry because Houston and Dallas are already against each other. They're the third team in it. Austin doesn't have a very strong sports history. They're the first professional team. Anything additional that Austin has is more like auto racing, X Games, Ultimate Frisbee. I mean, there's a couple of things there, but it's not mainstream stuff that the MLS would have brought in. And so now you just got this like, okay, well, this team is also here. So what are they going to do? Like force a rivalry scenario with Minnesota? You know, it doesn't make a lot of sense right now for Austin to come up. And so, I mean, I'm hoping that they can celebrate their own soccer history in that regard. You know, one of the reasons why Columbus is so important is because it was an original team, but you also have what FC Cincinnati did. Akron is a NCAA champion soccer team only a couple of years ago. There's a lot of positives that come around from what Ohio has been bringing to the soccer world lately, and it's important for them to keep that heritage. Maybe Austin can kind of do that too, but now Austin's almost just like it's an also there. When talking about the possibility of oversaturation of MLS markets, Austin FC now leads the charge as not so much as the most hated franchise that ever existed, but the franchise that nobody cares about at all because of this change. And it is truly unique to see this overlap of leaving Austin FC essentially hanging in the wind.
Yeah, I mean, and you make up a good point. I think the MLS said they want to top off the league at 28, I think. And Cincinnati's already going to have a team. Nashville's already guaranteed a team. Miami with a Beckham, with a David Beckham in there, is already have a team as well. Austin. So I think with those, there's only one spot left. I think that rounds out to 27. So I think there's one spot left. But yeah, now you look at where they are, and they had momentum, even if it was negative. It was something, and now it's gone. So now now Austin has to essentially start new in, like you said, not a well-known sports town. I think probably the most popular is the University of Texas football, and yeah, they're just starting like one step behind, or not even one step. They're just not starting with anything. So I mean, yeah, like right now, I don't really have a lot of care for Austin at all. No interest. So yeah. But great for the Crew. That's awesome for them. I mean, one of the best color combinations.
Absolutely, I love the black and yellow. It's very German in my mind, and so it's nice to have them. I mean, I'm hoping that they can also start doing some renovations. You know, not having a scoreboard that catches on fire periodically. You know, those are things that are important to have at an MLS stadium. And I think that Columbus will have that because of the private partnership. Everything that's kind of come up, I think the Haslams have been, you know, with their clout of being an NFL owner, with their extra cash that they provide to the Save the Crew group, I think it's enough to tip the needles in this way that it's going to just be running downhill at this point for Columbus, because they're going to have the money. They're going to have, keep things around. It actually kind of reminds me of the Bowling Green, also an Ohio team, the Bowling Green hockey team. It wasn't until Scott Hamilton, the figure skater, donated a ton of money to his to his alma mater to keep that franchise around. And it's very similar to see that clout that one person can have on top of a momentous group already that can really help out. And I think it's going to be something that is going to make the MLS stronger, regardless of what happens with the potential of Greg Berhalter going to the men's national team without any of the questions involved with what they're going to do in the playoffs this year. It's just positiveness now for Columbus. Everything is icing on the cake until the season is over. So good for Columbus, good for soccer in the United States. Bad for Austin.
Yeah, really bad for Austin.
And we'll see really bad for Austin, and we'll see what they can come up with. And it's going to be very interesting. Hopefully we can get somebody on the show to give that Austin perspective here in the next couple of weeks. Until then, we're going to take a break. We're going to bring our next guest on. It's a flash from the past, from the Your Soccer Passport World Cup editions. Luis Burranca, Peruvian journalist, coming to talk about a couple of topics. You're listening to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. And welcome back to Your Soccer Passport. We are on social media and would like to hear from you. Don't be afraid to interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and or Twitter. You can reach us at Your Soccer Passport. Tonight, the U.S. men's national team faces off in their last international friendly of the year against the South American continent as they host Peru in East Hartford, Connecticut. To talk about that, we have from Peru, community manager and host of Sentidos Deportivos, Luis Burranca. Luis, how are you doing today?
Hi, Brice. Hi, Ivan. Once again here in the Public House Media. It's been a while since the World Cup. We had too much fun. Like 4 months ago, great time with you guys, with Baxter and all the crew. And thank you guys for having me here once again.
No problem. It's we're glad to have you back. Obviously, Luis, you kind of alluded to your position with us on the World Cup version of Your Soccer Passport, and you gave some amazing analysis, which is one of the reasons why we're so happy to have you back, especially for this one because Peru is your home country and this is your national team. So to hear it directly from the horse's mouth, essentially, give us a breakdown of the Peruvian men's national team.
Well, during this present, after the World Cup aftermath, gives Peru a whole different present than they had 3 years ago. 3 years ago, there wasn't too many Peruvian players in Europe or even in the American Soccer League, in the MLS, or even in Mexico. Most of the Peruvian players were in the local league, in the Peruvian league. Now you can see faces such as Raul Diaz being a star in Seattle Sounders, maybe Jordi Reyna, who's being a top guy in Vancouver Whitecaps, or Andy Polo making his job in Portland, or even Yoshimar Yotun, who's been also a star in Orlando City SC. This new Peruvian present, it's very positive for the future because it gives a plus for Ricardo Gareca, for the head coach, to have a new draw when it comes about the 2022 World Cup race.
Yeah, you mentioned your head coach, Ricardo Gareca. Peru's in a nice spot compared to some of these other nations. Brice and I talk about Mexico and USA from time to time and how they're kind of in this limbo right now after the World Cup. Peru doesn't seem to be in that situation. You saw them smoke Chile, one of their rivals, 3-0. They kept the coach after the World Cup, so it seems more that they're just kind of continuing on the cycle, and instead of starting over, they're more just kind of continuing the process of what they started a couple years ago, which culminated into a World Cup.
Yeah, you said so. Last Friday, Peru had a blast, beating 3-0 Chile in Miami. For us, it's a big win because not because of the fact that Chile was a very dominant team during the last decade, but with putting in the fact, as a Peruvian, that Chile is one of the biggest rivals that Peru has, historical rivals, and they had not beaten Chile since 2013, as far as I remember. Last 5 years, Chile has been in a supremacy. Talking about soccer ways. That Peru knew how to equalize last Friday. They shown Chile that they have a lot of potential, a lot of determination, and most of it a lot of heart, because many Peruvians put aside the fact that they wanted to be stars, and they put in the fact that they wanted to being known as a team that loves the work, the teamwork, that loves to put the fact of men over stars. I don't know if you guys, don't get me wrong. This is a team that it's very unselfish, and putting aside the difference with the team that was fighting the 2014 World Cup spot, which they had the likes of Claudio Pizarro, Jefferson Farfán, Juan Manuel Vargas, or Paulo Guerrero, which many people in South America call them the Fantastic Four. For me, that was the biggest smoke selling of all time. But this is a team that put aside the fact of the stars and put in the fact of courage and determination, and most of it teamwork.
Made mention of this a little bit earlier. There are 5 MLS players as well as 4 Liga MX players on this Peruvian roster that will be playing in this game. Ivan, what does it mean to bring in a team like Peru that has so many familiar faces for it, preparing for this game against the U.S. men's national team?
Well, I think there's a familiarity to it. You mentioned how there's 5 in the MLS, there's 4 in Liga MX, and it's been great for both sides. It's helped the Peruvian players play it in a different environment, a different culture, and it's helped both Liga MX and MLS teams because they're able to find a Peruvian player, and their quality is there, and they're also getting them probably cheaper than they would a Brazilian or a Uruguayan or a Argentine player too. So I think the fact that you have all these players who are expanding and playing these different leagues, it's helped both them and it's helped the leagues. It's helped the leagues in general, and it's helped the Peruvian players, as you see now, the success they've had the last couple of years.
Luis Burranca joining us here as our guest on Your Soccer Passport. Luis, we've got kind of a weird spot though, because we've talked all these good things about Peru, but they're also 2-3 in their last 5 games. They're without their top 2 strikers. Jefferson Farfan is injured. Paulo Guerrera is suspended off that failed drug test. What should we expect specifically in terms of the offense and the scoring from Peru heading into this game tonight?
When it comes about the forward, if you want to put it that way, there's a big doubt in Peru because in last match against Chile, Raul Ruiz, MLS Seattle Sounders, Raul Ruiz had so many failed occasions against Chile. He had many chances to put against at least one goal against the Chilean goalkeeper. However, luck wasn't in his side, and that started to waken this big fat pressure by the Peruvian fans to Raul Ruiz, which many people started to compare him with Claudio Pizarro. He, as we all know, he's a legend in Germany. He's a legend in the Bundesliga, a legend in Bayern Munich or Werder Bremen. But like Claudio Pizarro back in the past, Raul Ruiz making so many goals in his team. He started to become a fan favorite in Seattle Sounders. However, he's not becoming that man that has been during his club career. He hasn't done so many goals with the Peruvian team. The most known goal, as we all remember, was the goal against Brazil, which was with the hand back in Copa America Centenario, and that's starting to put in the fact that maybe Ricardo Gareca is going to make a big change tomorrow against the U.S. because in the trainings, Jordi Reyna, another MLS guy who is in Vancouver Whitecaps, has been having more outstanding performances. He's now a star, and now he wants to fight for the spot against Ruiz.
Let's switch this back to the other team now. We've got the United States. They haven't done as well the last couple of games either, losing 4-2 against Colombia. Colombia, a very good team, of course, but the United States was also up 2-1 at one point. Courtesy of goals from Bobby Wood and Kellen Acosta, but they were outshot 17-5. They were doubled up on corners, and they only had 2 shots on goal. That being said, they made them count when they had them, but this is still a team in the U.S. that's still kind of struggling. Ivan, what do you see from the Americans as they get ready for this game against Peru, since we've heard so much about Peru coming in? Now let's get the flip side.
I mean, I think you're going to get it's going to be something similar, I think, to the Colombia game, where I think Peru is going to take the game to the U.S. They're going to have more of the ball. U.S. are going to have to pick their chances and find their opportunities to make the most of the chances that they do have. It's something we've seen in the U.S. last couple of games out. Again, they still don't have a manager, so they're still not a complete idea or a complete system of what they want to do game in and game out, when compared to Peru, which we've been talking about how well they've been going about their business the last couple of years. It's a chance for the guys to keep playing, though, and I think that's the most important thing, that gives a chance for these young guys to keep going out. Problem is, when they're going out, is there an idea of what they want to do? I mean, they beat Mexico last month or 2 months ago, and Mexico had a good control of the game until the red card happened. Colombia outclassed them a couple of days ago too, so it gives them another chance to prove themselves in the stage. And it's hard though, because it kind of just sounds like a broken record every time we do start talking about the U.S. men's national team, for the reasons we've talked in the past, you and I, about how times just frustrating. So, but gives them another chance to kind of go out and prove themselves against a very good team.
Let's go with predictions now. I'm going to go with 2-1. I think it's going to be 1-1 going into half, but I think those halftime adjustments of having a team that can have some experience playing with each other and having that goal is going to make a halftime adjustment that's going to make a difference. You could have a Tim Weah step up and actually get a goal here for the United States, or maybe somebody from the back on a set piece. But ultimately, I think that Peru has enough going for them in the right direction that they're going to get a couple of goals and take this win. Let's go to Luis. Luis, who do you think is going to win this one?
Before answering your question, I wanted to add something more than Ivan said a few minutes ago. Tomorrow we're going to see also history in the making, because Ricardo Gareca is going to reach his 50th match with the Peruvian national team. So he's going to tie with Marcos Calderon's record of 50 matches. And answering your question, I think we're going to see maybe or as far as I want to see, maybe a 2-1, because a fight at 2-1, because we don't get very confident with the U.S. Because of the match of 3 years ago. As we all remember, Peru started winning back in Washington, D.C., and Josie Altidore put 2 goals that were a reversal for the U.S. Was a very fight match, and I think I'm going to see, I want to see some little payback of what happened 3 years ago back in D.C.
I'm going to go 3-1 Peru. I think it's going to be I think they're going to have a good game. They're going to go off the momentum from the Chile win, and they're just going to keep building. I think you're going to see a team that's very focused and kind of has an idea of what they're doing. So, 3-1.
All right, so we got Peru winning on all sides here. 3-1 from Ivan, 2-1 from myself and our guest, Luis Burranca. Luis, while we got you here, though, we kind of do want to talk about one other thing because of the South American ties while we've got you, and I know this is one that you've got some kind of personal flashbacks to. Gustavo Matosas was hired in as the Costa Rican national coach on October 9th. He replaces Oscar Ramirez, who was not retained after his contract expired after the World Cup. Matosas has experience in Mexico, Saudi Arabia, Paraguay, Argentine leagues. He's done a good job with pretty much every team that he's been with, almost a 500% winning percentage. So he's got a lot of things going for him. What do you think of Matosas being brought in as the Costa Rican national manager?
Well, you said flashbacks. I remember also Gustavo Matosas in the Uruguayan National League. I remember him head coaching teams, not very known teams such as Danubio, or in my opinion, the most popular team in Uruguay, that is Peñarol. And when it comes also about flashbacks, Gustavo Matosas was also here in Peru. As a matter of fact, he discovered a big, great talent that it's going to be playing tomorrow against the U.S. He's going to be in the main lineup tomorrow. His name is Christian Cueva. He's now playing in Krasnodar in Russia. And I think there's going to be a new step in his coaching career, because Costa Rican football is so into South American soccer, because they have very fascination for the Colombian school, for the Uruguayan school. They always want to try to change the style. In this case, with Jorge Luis Pinto, which we all remember his performance back in 2014. He made a team with a lot of heart, and now they're looking forward with Matosas for a more disciplined school. Here in South America, we know Uruguay's soccer school because of their determination, their professionalism, and the patience with which they have. Because sometimes we all criticize the Uruguayan school that they don't have what it takes to become a very offensive, uh, uh, very likable team. Matos is one of those Uruguayans that wants to keep that wants to kill that perspective, that very wrong perspective about Uruguayan football, and he wants to change it in Costa Rica, which has a very famous famous school.
Yvonne, what do you think of the hiring of Matosas at Costa Rica?
I mean, I think it's a great hire for them. I know him from his time in Mexico. Coach Leon brought them up from the second division to the first, and then won back-to-back titles with them. He also won a CONCACAF Champions League with Club America, and he is very, like Luis said, he does have a style that's very offensive, kind of not what you assume or what you associate with Uruguayan soccer, and I think that's great for Costa Rica. I mean, I think undervalue them from time to time. They are definitely the third best team in CONCACAF. They have been, along with Mexico and USA for the last century, and it's great for them because it's now a different mentality, something we're not used to Central American teams being really offensive. And Gustavo Matosas, he kind of does it to a fault. A lot of high scoring, a lot of risk taking, and I think this is it's good for Costa Rica to try something new in that regard. And it's now they're also kind of in a change of generations. The Brian Reese's are leaving, and now it's more Keylor Navas's team. So it'll be interesting. It's a good fresh start for them.
And that's one that Costa Rica kind of needed. Oscar Ramirez was a stopgap coach. He came in and replaced the previous coach because he got into a fight in Panama and resigned over it. So even though that Ramirez took the team to the World Cup twice and did all right with it, it's still not, once as an assistant, once as a head coach, it still wasn't his team. It was still just kind of a fill-in. Now that the Costa Rican Soccer Federation, even their president said, and I quote, "We believe that his continuation is not appropriate or convenient in regards to Oscar Ramirez." So this is a chance that a dangerous Costa Rican team that has surprised a lot of people internationally, whether it's in CONCACAF or in general around the world with a very respectable ranking for a Central American team, they now come in here and sit with this big hire that is directly their own. And I think it's such a positive thing for Costa Rica right now to be able to move forward with their own style and to discern that with the Matosas hire.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a great hire, and I can't wait to see what they do in this Gold Cup. What you expect from them, I have high hopes.
I agree. Great pickup for Costa Rica. I think they're gonna blast it off once again, because back in the 2018 World Cup, it hasn't been even the shadow that they were 4 years ago. So it's gonna be a great pickup for me this new era. Gustavo Matosas.
Luis Burranca, our guest this episode on Your Soccer Passport. You can hear more from him with his podcast and on Facebook Live with Sentidos Deportivos. Worldwide Headlines is up next, but before we focus on that, we do want to remind everybody that we will not be talking about La Liga because Real Madrid still has not scored. You're listening to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. Time now for Worldwide Headlines here on Your Soccer Passport, a segment touching on some of the other big news from around the soccer world. The owner of the Washington Spirit is in talks to sell a majority of the team. According to the Washington Post, Bill Lynch is in talks with tech executive Steve Baldwin about purchasing the NWSL franchise in part. If the sale goes through, Baldwin would have final say in the next coach of the Spirit, as well as any potential upgrades to practice facilities and the availability of the team at DC United's new Audi Field. Lynch has owned the team since 2013 and would reportedly hold on to some of the ownership. The fastest man in the world, Usain Bolt, scored twice in the top Australian League Friday. The Jamaican added 2 goals for the Central Coast Mariners as they won their game 4-2 at a preseason friendly, but also had some costly turnovers in the first half of the game before being subbed out in the 75th minute. Bolt is an 8-time Olympic gold medalist, but retired from sprinting after the 2017 World Championships. He's on a trial basis with the team, and the team will determine if they will retain Bolt before the start of their season next weekend. And the Polish men's national team has the unfortunate distinction of the first ever team to be relegated in the UEFA Nations League. Poland lost 1-0 to Italy and have just 1 point through their first 4 games. There's only 6 in each group stage. There is no possibility for them to mathematically surpass either Italy or Group B leader Portugal in their group. Today's worldwide headlines are brought to you by the Public House Media Store Envy online shop. The best way to promote your soccer passport and any other PHM shows is with t-shirts, mugs, and more available in the Store Envy shop. Visit publichousemedia.storeenvy.com. That's STORENVY.com. Coming up next, our third segment here on Your Soccer Passport on Public House Media. Welcome back to Your Soccer Passport. I'm Brice Burge, Ivan Sanchez Carrasco 2. Follow us on Twitter at Ivan Sanchez C90 and at that Brice Burge, Brice with an I. Lots of additional commentary there from both of us, as well as our show handle at Your Soccer Pass. Give us a follow. The Women's CONCACAF Championship game is set with the 2 expected teams playing in that matchup, both Canada and the USA. Both reached the finals in very impressive manners. Canada with a 7-0 victory over the tournament Cinderella team, Panama. Canada scoring 6 of those goals in the second half. The U.S. dominated Jamaica 6-0 as well. Both of those teams essentially untested heading into this final. Both teams also do not have to worry about qualifying for the World Cup because they've both done so by just getting to this game. So if you're Canada or the U.S., how do you prepare for this? This is like a extra special friendly, or is there a title game on the line? What is the motivation for this win?
I guess the motivation is to win the game because it's essentially a tournament. So, but yeah, you can't be seen as a glorified friendly. You kind of see this during Olympic qualifying at the U23 level for the men. It's kind of something similar that if you reach the finals, you're already in the tournament. So. You kind of see similarities with that. I guess if you're Canada or USA, you just want to keep building on the tournament. They've both kind of rolled through everybody. Canada's only gotten scored on once. US hasn't gotten scored on yet. This was the kind of matchup we expected, I think, or if we didn't think they were going to get tripped up, and they didn't. So, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens because neither of them have been tested for 2 weeks. So. And this is going to be their first test for each other. So I think it'll be a great game.
I thought it was interesting how the opponents kind of prepare for this a little bit because with the Canadian game, they were 17-1. They allowed 1 goal real early on in the tournament. And then they played against this Panamanian team that was, with their lineup, suggested that they were playing for third place. They wanted to get in that regard. The other side of it, though, Jamaica showed that they were going to come out with their regular lineup, which, when you think about it, all of Jamaica's team has played in the United States in one way or the other. The vast majority of them are college students, though. They play on collegiate teams inside the United States NCAA system. So with that regard, you kind of expected, like, what would happen if, the New England Patriots were to face off against like Grand Valley State. Like it was going to be a game in terms of like a game, but it was not going to be equal skill levels, and that showed. But Jamaica also came out with confidence. They came out with their best lineup, that they weren't going to relax any bit. And I think that's going to actually help out the Americans just a touch because the Americans responded well to that. They came out, they did well. They didn't have to deal with a gimmick that Panama was pushing out against the Canadians because the Canadians only didn't score until the 44th minute of the game. And it was on a header, and it was a beautiful header by Sinclair, but it didn't even get started until the 44th minute of the game because of the gimmick style of defense that Panama was putting on there because they were so focused on this third place game. I think that helps out because now Jamaica taking that semifinal a little bit more seriously than what Panama did pushes the Americans a little bit more on their role. I mean, the Americans do have one issue. Morgan Bryan went down with a head injury, but if she's not in the lineup, it's not the end of the world for the Americans. And you just have to just say, we want this win. We're the number one team in the world. We are going to take what's ours. And it's definitely a win against a rival. And it's a win that can really launch you into what's your title defense, being the last World Cup winner in the Americans. So it's something that I think is awkward, seeing how Panama and Jamaica presented themselves as semifinal opponents.
Yeah, and I think we talked about last week kind of the have and have-nots of North American soccer and CONCACAF soccer in the women's game. And you mentioned it with the Jamaica team, a team full of pretty much mostly college students, and then you have the women's national team here, which have the best, maybe the best roster in the world. I mean, they're firing on all cylinders. So I'm interested in the third place game, though. I think that's going to be awesome to see which one of these two teams get the automatic qualifying berths to the World Cup between Jamaica and Panama. I think when you looked at the tournament beforehand, you wouldn't have picked either one of these two to be the third team to kind of make it out. I think in my mind, I think I had Mexico, and then they kind of they were disappointing against Panama in the last group stage. So now you have two teams who you weren't expecting. Now they're playing for the right to get a chance at the World Cup. And, like you said, Panama was kind of playing to maybe, for this third place game to get a chance, because all you need is that one chance to get that automatic berth. And so even though they both lost in the semis, they have this one opportunity to make it through and avoid going into a continental playoff against Argentina. So I think that's going to be an interesting game. I think the U.S. against Canada is just going to be a little stronger. I think they're going to be too much for them. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2-0, 3-0. Canada kind of seems to start off slow a little bit and kind of work into the game, while right off the bat you just see it looks like the U.S. are just firing on all the cylinders right from kickoff.
I think Canada's got a stronger pretense per se, but they do start off slow, and I don't necessarily think that's been because of Canada so much as it's been the opponents. When you look at that group, Mexico was there. Costa Rica, I think, was the other one that a lot of people kind of felt could have been in this third place game, and Costa Rica wasn't there either. And it gave us Jamaica, which has had a pretty good youth team. They've improved a lot in terms of the quality of women players that are coming out of Jamaica right now. So I get that, but I think Canada is going to get at least a goal. I think the question is when is that going to come around? Is that going to come around later on? Canada's kind of slacked off from that Olympic game where it was so tight between the U.S. and Canada in London. It was just so close. And while the U.S. has improved, Canada has slacked off a little bit. I still think Canada is a top 6 team in the world. And I think Canada, in the right situation, could really get a win against the United States. I think that they have to be scared, because the United States, I think in the League of Nations against Japan, especially against Australia, the United States team looked to struggle. Whether the Ellis experimentation period is truly over or not with the women's national team. Do they have enough togetherness to really kind of make sure that they can hold off a team like Canada when there's a title on the line? And this would be a big boost for the Canadians before they head into the World Cup, knowing that this is probably the last time that like a Sinclair is going to have a shot at winning the World Cup. There's so many things in there for Canada that I think makes them a little bit more dangerous than the Canadian teams that we've seen the last 2 or 3 years. And it does make them more exciting. I think it's going to make it a good game for the title, but I think it's going to be somewhere along the lines of like a 4-2, 3-1 type thing. I think the United States is still going to get it. I think the question is how many goals are going to come in succession, because you could see both U.S. and Canada, going tit for tat so many times down the field. It's just a matter if that's going to happen 1 or 2 times, I think, in the outcome of the score.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point, like the different mindsets between the teams. I think U.S. knows they're great, and I think Canada thinks they're great. So U.S. are more comfortable playing big time games against France, against Australia, against England, against Japan, where Canada. I'm not sure if they know or if they think they're at that level. I think U.S. knows they're at that level. They're one of the top 5 teams in the country in the world. Canada, I think thinks they are or hope they are, but they're not sure. And this is going to be the type of game where they're able to prove themselves against a very good U.S. team. And I think Canada needs the game more than U.S. I think the U.S. can stumble here and it's fine. They're just going to keep building momentum, entering France in the summer, because they already had some good victories over last summer against Australia, winning winning that little tournament. Where Canada doesn't have that, and they need a victory to kind of prove that they are and that they can compete in that elite level of the World Cup next year instead of just being a quarterfinalist. Do they have like the quality to be a semifinalist type of team? I don't think they're sure about that. I know the U.S. are sure about that, and I think that's the big difference.
Let's go a little bit to the third place game just one last time. Jamaica and Panama, you talked about who needs this game more. For me, it's very clear that Panama needs this game more, because Jamaica wouldn't come out with the lineup that they did if they didn't feel like they could comfortably beat Argentina in that playoff. Panama, though, they've never made a World Cup. They're on the fringe right now. It would mean the world to them to have both their men's and their women's team go to the World Cup, back-to-back years like this. So I think for Panama, it's a bigger deal, but I ultimately don't think Panama is strong enough as a team. They don't have consistency in the scoring third that Jamaica has. Jamaica has shown to hold themselves stronger against Mexico and Canada than I think Panama has against similar opponents in their group. And so I just truly think Jamaica is going to win this to get the third berth. It'd be the first time that a Caribbean nation makes the Women's World Cup. So I think there's a possibility on Wednesday that history will be made and it will be in favor of the Jamaicans instead of the Panamanians, probably by a score of 3-1, in my opinion. Do you have a prediction for the third place game?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on, I think, Jamaica. I think they just seem to be just a little better than Panama. Panama they're pretty good defensively, but a lot of it's just desperation defending too at times. And their goalkeeper's been pretty great too, the Panamanian goalkeeper. But yeah, I'm with you. I like Jamaica a little more, and I think they'll be the ones to qualify. And I think that's what the cool thing about this is going to allow us. There's going to be a Panama or a Jamaica in the Women's World Cup, which I think it's awesome. And we have no idea the kind of value that can bring to a soccer program like Panama and like Jamaica to be able to make a World Cup, to be so close and to have that experience to make it. We can't put a value on that type of experience that these two teams can have and can give their programs. So, I just like Jamaica more to make it than I do Panama.
The third place game between Panama and Jamaica will begin at 5 p.m. Eastern on FS2. The CONCACAF Women's Championship game between Canada and the U.S. will be Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Both of those games will be also available on Univision Deportes. Remember to subscribe to Your Soccer Passport on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found. I'm Brice Burge.
I'm Ivan Sanchez Carrasco. Yo, NBA tips off this week too. Go Blazers. Go Blazers here in Portland. Yeah.
I'm a Pacers fan. We'll see how that goes this year. I don't know. Oladipo.
Yeah, that's
Yay. Right. But this is soccer, and you're listening to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media.